Okay, so I am here with Faye, my amazing friend and astrologer, and we are just going to chat about the astrology for March because we've already we do this all the time. We'll have conversations and we just get into it and we're like, let's just press record and share some of this because we also were just talking about how we have our eye on different things during the month and how we just have different perspectives that we can bring. So I'm so excited to chat with you and see what unfolds today.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And so we're recording this on March 7th, which is the day Saturn moves into Pisces. So I think we'll start there since that's a big one. Like when I had looked at the astrology for 2023, like the whole year, usually at the start of the year, I'll just take a look, like what are the highlights, what kind of jumps out to me. And I remember looking at March and just saying, wow, March is like big shifting energy. Like March felt really potent to me. And so one of the reasons for that was Saturn in Pisces. So we'll start there. And I'll just highlight the second, just to kind of keep your interest. The second big shift that I was really feeling, why March felt big for me, was Pluto is also changing signs at the end of the month. So we'll touch on that. But yeah, Saturn in Pisces. So he has been in Aquarius for the past 3 years. So it's a pretty big shift. Like it's a pretty solid shift in like that energy.
Mhm.
I would love to hear like what Saturn and Pisces, like what that is kind of bringing up for you, what your take on Saturn and Pisces is.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes like to start with where it's coming from. So Saturn Aquarius for these last 3 years, I couldn't help but laugh when I saw that it was March 2020 that Saturn moved into Aquarius. And, for a lot of the world, that became the lockdowns and that became divisiveness. And, Saturn being our boundaries, our containment, our us and them type of energies. So when I think back to where Saturn's been over these last 3 years, it's so that, and Saturn's of course been in this home sign in Aquarius. And so this extra force or this energy that has been feeling a lot, like a lot of fixed energies and fixed ideas and communications and, this sort of rigidness that sometimes can come with the Aquarius fixed air energy. And I've found over the last maybe month or so leading up to Pisces, Saturn entering Pisces, with Saturn being the last 29 degrees Aquarius, it was like this final hit, this like wrap up of the last sort of 3 years, both collectively, but also in our personal lives. And this sort of last energy before it moved into Pisces. So for me personally, while there's so many different ways that Saturn in Pisces can manifest, of course, we never know. It feels, well, it will come with, of course, the unknown, and the challenge is a breath of fresh air, the water element coming back, the divisive, very firm boundaries where it's been in Capricorn and Aquarius for the last 6 years, basically, having a bit more permeability, having a bit more movement to actually address, are the structures that we've been building in our personal lives and collective the ones that we want, the ones that are serving us. And with Pisces being this mutable water energy, the image that I have is this sort of like dry, brittle river system that is getting a bit more water back, a bit more life back, a bit more looking at the broad perspective, and what's sort of possible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. What is possible? That's been coming up a lot for me as I feel into Saturn entering Pisces. There's this energy of like creating deep foundations and trust and
Totally.
expanding, because Pisces is such a like boundless, infinite energy sign of like expanding our possibilities. But we only get to do that when we're in a deep state of trust. And so
Totally.
that's this kind of first piece that I'm feeling, because if you think about it, he'll be there for 3 years. So there's kind of these stages. And I always think about Saturn as like he's building the foundation. He can feel often like sometimes he gets a bad rap because he can feel a bit harsh. It can feel a bit like a reality check. But when you really lean into, the energy of Saturn, it's like building these foundations, like getting really solid so that we can bring all our dreams into reality. Because otherwise, everything's just, in the dream state, and it's just, not real. And so Saturn makes things real, which I love about Saturn. Like,
Mhm.
right, when you
Mhm.
can really lean into that. And it's like beautiful. Like this first stage is really setting those foundations and trust.
Mhm.
And so I felt for myself, like these past few days, it's bringing up all the places where I don't trust.
100%.
Right? It's like all the places where I'm not deeply in trust, like that's all coming to the surface. And I'm like, beautiful, great. Like I'm bringing light to that.
Mhm.
And also another piece to kind of add a layer as you're, feeling into this shift, you can look at what house
Mhm.
Aquarius and Pisces is for you to give you an idea of like, and you probably, I mean, you already know, like, where has Saturn been building the foundations for the past 3 years? Where has he been allowing you to come into mastery? Because I also think about Saturn and mastery. Like
100%.
these past 3 years, was it in your house of career? That's
Mhm.
where mine was. And it's like, I
Mm.
felt the foundations being solidly like set.
Yeah.
And so looking at what house Aquarius is for you, and then also Pisces and where that falls, because as we move now into Pisces, we're going to
Mhm.
be expanding and like setting really solid foundations
Mhm.
and getting really like real in this area of our chart, which I think that's like we're getting real. Saturn
Yeah.
wants us to get real.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing, because it's like when I look at these past 3 years, like the name for my business is set in. Like I opened Temple of the Rose, like things got really
Mm.
solid. Like my business
Yeah.
feels solid in a
Yeah.
way it didn't before. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's the beauty of Saturn, it's like, okay, we're gonna make things real. And it's gonna bring all the things up to the surface. When we think about 3 years, like it's a journey. It's like, okay, we're at the start. We're just at the start right now, right? And then there's
Yeah.
the middle, and then there's the wrapping up, and the like that really reflecting on the mastery that you have stepped into in those
Mm.
3 years. So yeah,
Mhm.
I love some of those like keywords like standing out, or really like mastery and making things real. Like that's the beauty of Saturn.
Exactly. Exactly like you say. And with that sort of mastery, stepping into our own sovereignty and our own sort of authority, and where we are showing up for that and where we're not. And, like you said, I love totally same of that. This last 2 weeks especially have been like, how much do you trust? How much can you surrender? Which to me is such a Piscean word, of course. And so this shift of, like you said, with Saturn wants us to make it real, wants us to bring in this foundation, wants us to step into our power and our authority and our mastery. And yet, for a lot of us, that first step is that trust, is that faith. And so it's the image I have a little bit is, like a juggler on the ball or something, and sort of, having to keep this of you're getting knocked down one side, because Saturn does bring in tests, he brings in limits, he tests us, like he makes us work, in the most genuine, heartfelt way, but it's work, he rewards patience and perseverance and commitment. And so for me right now, there feels this having, like you said, we're in like the first couple hours of this 3-year transit. And so me, there feels a commitment to that Piscean energy of being held, of being supported, of something coming at you that you might not have been expecting, that might derail you, that might throw you off your ball for a second, and coming back to that commitment of, but I know that there's something greater happening. I know that there's some magic unfolding that I possibly can't even comprehend at this minute, but resting in that space, and my personal intention for the Pisces new moon was just, I am so loved by you, you being the cosmos, the universe, whatever my word is. And so with this full moon, totally being tested in that, which the full moon is today as well. And so Saturn entering Pisces is that recommitment and faith of, to make it real, it's not just me, it's co-creating, and co-creating with these energies that are at play right now. And so if we're able to work Pisces with Saturn, because they are very different energies, right? But that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I feel that that balance piece is actually going to be really nourishing for us as a collective, because he's a collective sign, of getting to look at what boundaries need to be dissolved and which actually might need a bit more strengthening, because that is a sort of shadowy side of Saturn that in Pisces that I've been feeling into, is a bit of a permeability and a bit of where do you end and where does the next begin. And so where have we had too strong boundaries before? And so again, this being able to merge while still keeping our own sovereignty, keeping our own mastery. And like you said, really honoring and celebrating where he's been traversing. Like for you in your 10th house, for me, it's been in my 3rd house. And I've been doing more newsletters and my communications have changed, and I'm starting communities and things like that. So, and it's been work, and it comes as I know, a lot of self-doubt and a lot of, again, how much do you want this? How much are you willing to put in the work to honor, love, and hold those doubts, that come with Saturn, and still move through, because I really believe he rewards those who are like, yeah, this is scary. This is tough. I don't know what's going to happen. And yet I'm going to continue to do it anyways.
I love that commitment piece. Yes. And
Mhm.
that's really what I've been like when I think about, especially the past 3 years, but especially this past like year, it's like just keep
Yeah.
going. Like you're just
Yeah,
like, I'm
exactly.
so committed and devoted to my work, which has been the past 3 years, but it gets to continue into whatever area it is for you, just like that complete devotion to what you're
Mhm.
doing and to your craft. And that,
Totally.
right. And because that can be in any area. Like when you look
Yeah.
at the whole like area of your chart, like that can be anything for you. And so I love that commitment piece. And I
Mhm.
agree, it is a very different, like Saturn and Pisces are different energies. So when Saturn
Mhm.
moves into Pisces, it's interesting, but I find like what's been coming up for me, and again, we're just in the first like hours of it, but it's really this like this energy of how can you flow and let go as well.
Mhm.
And that
Yes,
actually
yeah.
is how we're going to bring things in. I had a
Yes.
friend just this morning like message me that, she said she was just like last night she had this epiphany of like, everything's going to be okay. I'm just going to let go. Like everything is going to be fine. And this morning she woke up to a client reaching out that wanted to book a session with her. And she's
Okay.
like new in business. So like, that's kind of what's been on her mind. And I'm like, this is exactly it. This is where Saturn is like, if you can trust and let go,
Yeah.
that's when things will become real in like a very tangible way. And
Yeah.
so I love like we're just in the beginning of it, but I can already see how this is really like taking root and taking form in this energy of Saturn making things real while we are able to trust and flow. And like there's a very like there's a softening with it, but
Mm.
sometimes
I love
Saturn can
that.
feel rigid. It's like,
Mhm.
but that doesn't Saturn in Pisces does not feel rigid. It feels like, yeah, we're going to be tested in our trust and like where we doubt all of these areas. But um, the more we can soften and
Mhm.
trust and surrender,
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like that's when right things will become real. And
Yeah.
in these 3 years, like also just leaning into that, like things get to be more amazing than I could ever imagine. Like it gets to go
Yeah.
beyond our imagination, beyond what we can vision.
Mhm.
And I love that you brought up as well, like reflecting on the past 3 years, because
Mhm.
I think the more we can celebrate
Mhm.
and, um, just like appreciate and really be in that like harvest phase. I find like when we're moving through the seasons, it's like we're in that spring where we're like new
Mhm.
ideas, and then we're in the summer where like yes, things are coming to fruition. And then sometimes that like fall in the harvest, because to me it's really that harvest and celebrating and like savoring and like wow, like we
Mhm.
grew this. Because sometimes we go
Mhm.
right into like the integration and then the wanting to go back into spring.
Yeah.
And so I know, sometimes the winter can be tough too, but I find even more so than that rest period, it's the celebrating period
Totally.
that we
100%.
sometimes skip over. So like really taking the time, in this transition of celebrating and like looking back at the past 3 years and really like honoring that, I
Mhm.
feel like is also a really big piece, because I have totally felt that the more gratitude we have for where we're at,
Mhm.
the more things come like in the most beautiful
Mhm.
and like seamless way.
Absolutely. No, exactly. And I think we've just sort of lost the art of celebrating, to be honest, and really seeing any win as a massive win. And, we can, Saturn, because he can be our inner taskmaster or inner critic, can bring in that, well, did you get where you wanted to go? Or did you get X amount of whatever the blank is? And so we can focus more on that rather than the mastery that we have taken, that we've moved through these challenges. I even said that to myself last week when I was in a crunch period and trying to send out all these things and write new things for all of that's happening in March, and didn't want to do it. And I was feeling a lot of resistance, and it wasn't my Virgo perfectionist the way that I wanted. And then I just stopped and said, even 2 years ago, this would have been unfathomable for me to think about sending out all these emails. So why don't I stop and really celebrate that, harvest this growth that we can totally pass by, and like you said, move back into spring without really having that integration period. And Saturn, why I love him is that he reminds us that things take time. He's father time. Patience is such a big lost virtue in our society, that's instant gratification constantly, and if you're not getting the results right now, that means you're not doing anything. And really, I love his reminder of the go slow, and both of us very much into the feminine ways of being able, and I love the word softening that you used, because it is that he's building something that will last if we put in our commitment and our perseverance and in Pisces and our faith and our trust. And that, confusion does come with Pisces territories. We might feel a bit adrift at points, but being able to come back to it, remember to be able to sink in to where we are in this moment is so profound. And that I'm willing to build something that's going to last rather than something that can be knocked down in a day. And so remembering that I think is such a big piece of the Pisces piece, is that things take time. And Pisces can really help us remember that. Really, Pisces is not on a time frame, like get these 16 emails sent out by 9 a.m. And so again, this is what this beautiful balance between the two, I'm really hoping will be sort of a tonic for people, really coming back to our own personal timelines and what that means, and that they're not because of whatever else is saying that we should be following.
I love that you're bringing this up, because just this morning, and this has been a theme, of course, as it is, it's been a theme for the past few weeks, but really just this morning, I was feeling into it, and I was just like tuning into my body, like, okay, what do I need? And it was like slowing down, like that's what I needed. And, we are scheduling this call like late morning, and I tend to like have my mornings be really slow. And so, the scheduling of this, we were like, perfect, like this is the time that we have today. But normally I would schedule things for later in the afternoon. So I didn't want there to be a pressure. I was like, I have enough time. But it actually was a message, rather than like trying to get things done and get ready. It was like, slow down. And I had this epiphany of, those moments when you're just like savoring time, and you're just like not thinking about time, and you're just allowing yourself to be slow. Feels like you have more time.
100%.
And the moments when you're rushing, I swear the time goes by so fast. So this morning I was like, let's test it out. And so I was like, just getting ready, and like, and I knew I had a certain amount of time. Like, say I had 10 minutes before the call. And I was like, I still had to brush my teeth and like do a couple of things. But I was like, we're going to test this out. We're going to just not keep looking at the time. We're just going to like be in the moment, like brushing my teeth, like picking out, which earrings I wanted to wear. And then it was like, I literally was exactly ready, exactly when I needed to be. And I know I've had the same experience where I'm trying to do the things, and then I'm like looking at the time, and it feels like I have less time. So I love that you bring up this piece with Saturn and time, because I really feel like the more we can slow down and like not be in that rush energy, the more time it actually feels like we have, because time is funny like that, right? So I tested it out this morning, and I'm like, yep, this is so true. Like, and there's been so many instances, like I think about too, like when I go for a massage, if I'm thinking about the time, because I always like, I could be there forever. I'm like, I think I needed like up my time with the massages, but I'll go for like a 90-minute massage. And when I'm thinking about like, oh, I hope it's not over yet, like it seems like it goes by really fast. And the moments when I'm just like in it, like there have been times like we've both talked about it, we're like, wow, we just stepped into like some type of energy where like we just felt like we had all the time in this space. And
Yeah.
that's what I found to be true. And so I love that this is coming up. I love that you brought up the Saturn and time piece because yeah, he is father time. Like
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of like you're saying, with him going into Pisces, this permeability of time. It's not so rigid. It's not so, that 1 hour massage, depending on your mindset, can either feel like it's over or that it was 5 hours. My big thing are I'm obsessed with baths. And so I say I'm having a short bath if it's an hour. And if I only have an hour, I'm tense. I'm like, oh my God, it's only an hour. And then when I give myself that spaciousness, that freedom to just drift and dream, I mean, I can be in there for 3 hours easily thinking that it's 20 minutes because it just loses all weightiness to it. It makes me remember that Saturn is father time, but we get to define what that time feels like. And maybe that's what you're saying. And I'm 100% a rusher and I am always, on the last minutes of things. And so that's a personal sort of, not goal, but area of exploration for me is to exactly like you, what if I just didn't rush? What if I actually just trusted that piece that things will unfold and work in the way that they're exactly supposed to, and then see what unfolds and what imagines. And again, that's that trust piece, because my logical mind is like, but that's not possible. You have to do this to be able to get there in this time. And that's like, or what if I play around, exactly like you did this morning? What would it be like? Maybe I'm gifted more time from nowhere, from Pisces, who is limitless possibilities and magic.
I love it. Yeah, test it out, try it out, because I swear it's like,
Okay,
and
cool.
most people, you've had these experiences, like you've had these experiences.
Mm.
But I love that. And so if you want to look at your chart, just to give some like tangible pieces, Saturn is going to be in Pisces, we said, for the next 3 years. And so in 2023, he's going to be around 0 to 7 degrees of Pisces. So you can look at like that area of your chart, like really like that 0 to 10 degrees, see what house Pisces is for you, if you have any planets in early Pisces, also what's to come in Pisces, like if you have other planets, like, oh, okay, that's to come in the next year or two. So that's a little bit of the like the place where he'll be is about 0 to 7 degrees in Pisces. And yeah.
Sorry, and just on that also, I find it also really helpful to see the relationship of where your natal Saturn is, because he's also going through shifts in this, he has to feel that energy. So I like to look at both, like definitely the transit first and foremost, but then starting to notice where it is in your natal house and seeing those shifts, seeing how, Saturn and Aquarius over the last 3 years might have shifted that Saturn placement. Obviously not like literally shift it, but change that energy. And so as Saturn enters Pisces, bringing it into that placement as well, just to sort of give a wholeness to his journey.
Yeah, I love that you brought that in. Yeah, because that feels like the underlying energy that's always there, like our natal placement. So yeah, so true. Looking at both where Saturn is for you natally and what the area of Pisces in your chart has for you. So that's and there's so much that we get to like explore and unfold, as like we said, we're in the first hours of this. So there will be more. But I also would love what's kind of a highlight of March for you that you have your eye on, that you're kind of following in astrology.
Well, definitely the Pluto Aquarius, but maybe we'll end with that. So another big one for me personally or collectively is Jupiter meeting with Chiron in the sky, so conjuncting. I believe it's next Sunday, March 12th. That one's a big one I've been following because this energy has been building. And I've noticed it in my personal life. I've noticed it in my clients, in the collective. Jupiter, the great expander, the magnifier, there seems like a lot of deep wounds, Chiron, our wounded healer placement in our chart, coming to the surface, you know, bringing this new light, this Aries energy to it where they both are right now. And so this having to look at parts of ourselves that we might have been hiding away, having to see what wounds might have been stopping us becoming the I am that is that Aries energy, that is that going forth. And there seems a deep healing that's been taking place as this transit builds. And you know, we were talking before we started recording that oftentimes we feel the energies much more prominently before the exact day, and I've 100% been feeling this energy of having to really hold these wounds, these deep-seated wounds. And with Chiron, it's these wounds that oftentimes we carry from our childhood that we can't really explain to people. You know, it's this feeling of not belonging, of being in between two places, like the mythology around Chiron. And so oftentimes I find that people get stuck on the wounded part of the wounded healer. And for me, why I'm so drawn to this transit is that it feels like for those willing, because this is a big piece of all astrology, for those willing to actually go into these areas, to venture into these darker aspects, harder aspects, there is a deep, profound healing taking place. There's a real reemergence of ourselves, and putting in the work, knowing that we're allowed to be sad in our wounds. We're allowed to feel them fully. In Chiron's case, this is the wound that never heals. We might never heal these wounds, but it's this transformation that's taking place that has really been calling my attention, because there feels like Chiron to me is our return to our instinctual self. You know, he was half man, half horse, half divine, half human. So again, always between these two worlds. And for me, who can be, I have a lot of air in my chart, I can be very heady sometimes. It's been this profound, almost initiation, to be honest, to come back into my instinctual self, to stop myself if I'm going into my head, saying, literally stopping and say, what do I feel in my bones to be true right now? And that being the only thing that I need to know. So as this transit's been taking place, and Venus was right beside them, you know, last week. So a lot around relationships, or values, or self-worth, and all of these things coming up. So I've been using it a lot because people feel in a very vulnerable, or not vulnerable necessarily, but there's a sensitivity that I've been feeling into around my clients and the collective right now. And so knowing that there is this unsurfacing of these wounds, this bubbling up, but with the consciousness, with the acknowledgement of them, there's such a profound healing taking place as well, where we get to step into our inner healer, our inner mentor, our inner guide, to really be able to use them for service, you know?
Yeah. And I always think about Chiron as a medicine man. Like I
Mhm.
always say, like he brings such deep medicine. And
Mhm.
this is a conjunction when like Jupiter is expanding this. He is like allowing this area to just be really illuminated and like opened up. And so like big medicine gets to come through. And I believe it's like the last time Jupiter and Chiron were conjunct was 14 years ago is what
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
um and was it 14 years ago? I think it was 14 years ago. Because I mean, Jupiter takes about 12 years to move around.
Yeah.
Chiron moves a little like wonky. He's sometimes
Yeah.
like, depending on what sign he's in, he's longer.
Yeah.
But I think when I looked, I think the last time that they were together
Mm.
was about 14 years. So it's,
Mhm.
regardless, it's a, somewhat rare
Mhm.
occurrence. Like it's not like
Mhm.
they don't come together every year. So
Yeah.
this, expanding of
Mhm.
us being able to really receive this medicine
Totally.
feels really healing. And the piece
Yeah.
that's been coming up for me is this. I love that you brought up like the half human, half divine piece of like, there's this energy of like separation. And
Mhm.
when we think we're separate, there can be this sadness and this like, just we forget, so we get like stuck in like whatever we're in.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I've found, like, as I've been kind of feeling in the past week like there's this sadness in the separation. And there's also this like expansion though. It's like, it's whenever I really feel into like the bigness and the like the
Mm,
truth of like how, truly divine, I am, it comes with this sadness, which is like this new piece that's been coming up. Not that I've never felt this before, but it's just been highlighted, which is making
mhm,
sense with
mhm,
this like this big illumination with Jupiter of,
mhm.
for me, it's like just tuning into those places where like it's almost like I don't want to feel the bigness and which is like right, that's a place where I love, but it's like it's bringing up this sadness. So I'm having
Mhm,
to go into it with this like,
mhm.
no, that's okay. Like, and just bringing love to those places that like have that sadness or have felt that sadness. I'm like going way back to when I was like little. I remember like it being in my bedroom during a nap one day. Like this memory came back to me, and it was like having that feeling of like that sadness. And it's
Mhm,
like, I haven't like like just the magic of how that is unfolding for me.
mhm,
I truly believe as you're talking about this, I'm like, I really believe like there's some big medicine in that
mhm.
definitely feels like this Jupiter Chiron piece.
Totally. And, as you're saying that, it makes me think of the transition from Pisces into Aries, Piscean, all encompassed, safe in the mother's womb, part of everything, that interconnectedness, and that jolt into Aries of becoming an individual, becoming a separate self. And so, because they're both in Aries right now, really highlighting that and highlighting that how alone that it can feel. And again, going back to Chiron, that aloneness that feels of not belonging to either the gods or the humans, to the um, to the centaurs or to man, all these different things. So, and yet still being part of it all. So I think that that's exactly it, this journey that you're talking about, of recognizing both sides, both pieces of the puzzle that make us who we are, and how scary it can feel to be alone, to have to be, that Aries energy, that first on the scene. There's a tenderness that still comes with it as going through it. And so for, potentially as Chiron's going through Aries with Jupiter right now, maybe for individuals looking at where their wounds might have been feeling inhibiting them showing up as their true selves, or being able to show, or where that loneliness can come into one's chart. Like we talked about, looking at your natal placement of Chiron, looking where he's transiting through those houses. There's a deep, I love that you say the medicine man, because that is so what he is to me. There's so much wisdom that he carries, like so much. If we're accepting and willing, and again, that oftentimes a lot of, with good reason, we don't want to go into our wounds, but he's that sort of soft whisper, I feel, of that, you're being held, you're that it's okay, that he has you, he's going to hold you through this. And what emerges is our ultimate power, is our ultimate strength, and our ultimate, healer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And in mythology, like he is all the things. Like
Yeah.
he is like a master healer. He knows, he knows herbs, he knows archery, he knows like he knows all these arts, like he knows all the things. So it's like, there's no area that he cannot be the teacher, is how I feel
Yeah.
about Chiron.
Yeah. And because of his wound, like he had to go explore the lands for the herbs to try and heal the wound that would never heal from the Hydra, and all these things. So again, it's an encouragement to all of us of, it's not in spite of his wounds, it's because of his wounds that he became all of these different masters, or had mastery in all these different areas.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mm.
love it. So yeah, so that's you said that around like March 12th. I think I had looked at I think it's
March,
next week.
yeah, March 12th.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah,
So we'll feel that the peak of it, and then there'll be the after, and we'll be in that
exactly.
energy for a bit. So really most of March I feel like we'll be in that energy.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah. It's sort of the pinnacle, but that energy, yeah, waning slowly. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Well, let's get into Pluto and Aquarius, because I want to make sure we have
Okay.
time to
Yeah.
speak to Pluto, because this is a very big one. So Pluto has been in Capricorn for the past 15 years, since 2008. So this is a very big shift. He is a slow mover. And so this is a big, and this is why I was like, the same month, Saturn and Pluto are shifting signs, like that's big energy. That's big shifting energy. When you feel into Pluto, like it's been 15 years, like this is a big one. And so I know when because he'll be in Aquarius, at 0 degrees of Aquarius for, I think 4 months, or for like a good chunk of this year. And then he'll move back into Capricorn to wrap up. And then he'll come back next year and he'll be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So 2 decades, like, right. He's a slow mover. Like these are big, big shifts here. And Pluto, I feel like always brings this like depth, and he's like, we're going deep. We're going to excavate. We're going to like get really, we're going to, because he's in a sign for so long. He's like, well, yeah, we're going to go deep. We're going to like, bring all the things to the surface. And I know, one of the things that I've found, so Pluto, he's power, he's money, he is like, transformation. He is like all of these big themes. And I felt when I was thinking back about Pluto and Capricorn, like 2008, and I know for me personally, but also collectively, like money has been a big theme, and power, like our shift with money. Also, when we feel into 2020, right? Everyone just feel into 2020, like wild year. Saturn and Pluto had their conjunction January of 2020. So the 2 planets that we're talking about having their big shifts, Saturn and Pluto came together in January of 2020, when like the whole world changed pretty much. So they both had like this piece to play in how we are transforming and shifting in the collective and personally, but nothing has been the same since that. And so when I feel into Pluto and Capricorn, it really brings up some of those themes. And the theme I feel when I feel into, because again, we can feel into this personally and we can feel into this collectively, so it's both always. But when I felt into Pluto moving into Aquarius, I was like, okay, what's the kind of that like key piece that's coming up for me? And for me, it was community. Like this piece of revolutionizing, because Aquarius is like revolutionary. It's thinking about things in a new way. It's seeing things in a new light. It's also the sign of the humanitarian, and it has a collective feel of like how we come together. I always say Aquarius is like, it's about being your unique self. So it's like the unique threads that weave this tapestry together. And there is this energy of like community and the collective. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. Pluto moving into Aquarius. And of course, there's many themes that we get to, uncover, and again, personally, collectively, but this piece of community, like really revolutionizing the way that we come together. Because I do believe, like, speaking of that, like separateness, like we are meant to be together in community, and however that looks. And again, thanks to technology, Aquarius, we're able to connect globally. Like you're in Canada, I'm in the US, like we're having this conversation right now. Like it's a beautiful thing. And so I feel like that is gonna like just, I can't even imagine the next 20 years how that's gonna revolutionize. But this community feel of like how we can really like remember that we're connected, that we can be in community, and it may be like in physical community, also the way that we are connected to the land and the earth and each other. So that's one of the big pieces that like just that kind of like, umbrella collective energy that I'm feeling for Pluto and Aquarius.
I love that. And I think we need that, and these transits come in a cosmic intelligence far beyond what we could ever imagine. And it feels like the world is in need of this. There's been so much separation for the last couple of years, but even before that. And so really having this new energy, this new shift. And for me, it's funny because I think about that and what I hope and dream, again, very Aquarian, what's possible for this future. And the sort of realist in me too with Pluto is like, but you're going to uncover the kinks before that transformation happens. He unearths what is not working. And when I was thinking back into Pluto in Capricorn, 2008, when he moved in, the financial crisis that hit and really uncovered the what was not working, you know, the deceit, the secrecy, the hiddenness, the underworldness that Pluto can usher in to highlight what's not working. And then someone reminded me of Pluto and Sagittarius was when all of the exposés around the church were coming out about the abuses that were happening in the church, very Sagittarius. So my sense, without the no fear mongering, is that there's going to be an unearthing of what hasn't been working, where, you know, because like you said, he's transformation, he is our empowerment, he is our ultimate potential. And so I feel that there's a real phoenix, you know, ashes burning of like, there might be some things disintegrating before we rebuild in a way that's collective and supportive, and, you know, the highest, the exalted Aquarius that we all know exists. Because we need that. The world needs that right now. But I wonder if we're going to be seeing more examples of where this hasn't been playing out. I have my own thing about technology in Pluto. Like I've seen so many scams, so many people being taken advantage of these days. And I'm like, there's something weird going on there. But again, recognizing where the imbalances are. But he comes with this power, with this intention of righting the wrongs. But he's, as we both know, he does not sugarcoat what's not working. And so this illumination potentially of what does need to shift so that we can come together as this collective, because I also believe that that is what this is about. I think we're going to see it in a totally new, real way, which is so exciting. And maybe, you know, as he retrogrades back through Capricorn, we might see more of these imbalances while he's in Aquarius. We might see this sort of hit at 0 degrees Aquarius, a very powerful degree. And then coming back into Capricorn, to build the foundations to actually support this transformation, to be able to actually emerge and work with these energies in a foundational way that Capricorn can give, to then bring in that Aquarian energy that we really need. And like you said, 20 years is a long time to simmer in. So we'll be, you know, these are generational shifts that we're experiencing, which is what's so exciting about it.
Yeah. And then feeling into, you know, personally, which you've already brought up some of these ideas of Pluto, like he is death. He is God of the underworld. And so wherever you're not comfortable with releasing and letting go and that death for rebirth energy, he'll bring that in. So he's going to be entering in a new area in your chart. So it's going to be working with these themes of death and rebirth. Like, where are you not comfortable with letting go and the release? And, you know, I always say with Pluto, like I love Pluto, but I've had to get really, really comfortable with my relationship with death and letting go. And he brings that, but it's in the most beautiful way, because I really do feel like Pluto, it's this energy of like, he wants you to be your allness. Like he wants you to be the full spectrum of you. Like he wants all of it. Like he wants the dark shadowy bits. He wants the like too muchness. Like he wants all of it.
Yeah.
And in order to be that, it's like you have to bring light to the darkness. You have to shine that light on those like shadowy bits that you've, you know, kept down, that, you know, and often we don't even know it, because there's always more. There's always more to expand into. So there's always more to explore. And so it's those places that like you didn't even know a lot of the time that you're holding like shame or any of these, you know, kind of shadowy feelings. He brings light to that. And so, and again, it's in the most like, might not always feel like it, but it's in the most like love-filled way. And like, I want you to be the fullness of you. And so again, you can, same with your chart, you can take a look at like where Capricorn and Aquarius are for you. Aquarius is where he's going to be moving in. So on March 23rd, and he'll be there in Aquarius through June 12th. So you can look at like, okay, what house is Aquarius for me, especially that early Aquarius. He's going to be at 0 degrees of Aquarius, because this is the place he's moving into. And we can already start to feel it, because you spoke to like, we'll feel the energy before. And it's like, he is going to be bringing, you know, some shining light on these dark places. and really helping us to like unearth and to express and to fully like be liberated in those places that we are just holding things in a little bit. And again, sometimes we don't even know it. But that's the beauty of Pluto. And so when you feel into personally, you can tune into your chart and right now just feel into like, what are those pieces coming up? And because Saturn and Pluto are shifting in the same month, like I feel like a lot of those themes support each other in this, like, just let it go and trust. And the pieces that are coming up, like those shadowy bits that are coming up, those places where you are not in trust, where you are, doubting, where you are in fear, it's like letting those come up so that you can choose love over fear. And like sometimes that, gets, it can sound a little whatever, overdone, choose love over fear, but it is the truest thing that like has gotten me through these past few weeks, is like whenever I'm in this, it's just like I choose love. Like I am gonna, yes, I'm gonna acknowledge, and I'm not gonna ignore like the shadowy bits, because like, when you're all about, the dark feminine, like you can't ignore it, but it's like not coming from that fear place. Like that's a different energy, like doing the deep shadow work and like allowing those places within yourself to be liberated is very different than being in fear. And so that's the piece. It's like coming to these places with the most love, like coming to the places within me that are holding shame, that are holding doubt, and just bringing them the most love. Like that feels like Pluto. Like that is Pluto. It's like, yeah, like it might be a little painful, it might hurt a little bit, but it's so that you can be more of yourself. And like, how great is that?
Exactly. I love that piece. And exactly like you said, it's this, I think of Pluto and Neptune or Pisces energy as very different but complementary surrender pieces. Neptune is the hand it over, divine trust and faith. And Pluto can be, I'm so tired, I can't do this anymore, I need your help. I like a bit of a pleading sometimes, if we're being honest, or in my personal life. And it's like, then it's almost like he says to you, and now you've fully given up control. Now you've fully given up trying to be the master in your life. And only now are you ready to receive all the gifts that I want to give you. Because exactly like you said, there's so much love that he comes with. There's so much potential that he brings, but it's not for the faint of heart. You have to get to that place of relinquishing control, of relinquishing your ego mind's version of how it's supposed to look like or where you should be, for him to fully come in and support you in that. And so, like you said, this combination of Saturn entering Pisces and Pluto entering Aquarius feels very complementary in these themes of relinquishing control, which, let's be honest, is the hardest thing for 99% of people to do in different aspects of their life. Like, this is what it's about. This is why people avoid Pluto, because we don't want to give up control. And so he's almost like, this image I have is him just waiting. He's like, who's ready? Who is really willing even to give up time frames of, I need to rush and give up, have everything done in these 10 minutes. Are you willing to trust that much? And really, again, like you said, but I always remind clients who are going through big Pluto transits, which is another thing you can check in your chart. The gods are always on your side. They're not like malicious, malefic beings, entities. They're always on our side, and it can be so hard to see it when you're in it. And that's again where the Saturn and Pisces piece comes in, of keeping that commitment, keeping that trust and faith, that you might not be able to see what's happening around you, but having the determination to keep going forward, having that faith, surrendering to it all, then the gifts start to appear, whether it's a day, a month, or 10 years later, but really having to root yourself, Saturn, like root yourself in this unwavering faith and hope and love,
Yeah, I can really feel that. And I think the last piece that's coming is, ask for support, ask for help. Like you have to ask in order to receive. And it's like, sometimes we forget that we can ask. And, it's like, I have to remind myself, like, yep, like, oh, that's right. Like, ask for help, ask for support, right? Whether that's spiritually and like, you know, handing it over. I think that's like, we forget that we can do that. There's a quote I love by Megan Watterson, and she says, spirit is ethical. You have to ask in order to receive. Like we do, we have to ask for the support. And then you can also do that in, you know, ways where like reaching out to friends or support, or, you know, hiring the coaches, hiring the therapists to like help support you. But I think the core piece that's coming is like asking to receive on that spiritual level. Because that's it. Like you have to ask in order to receive, and you are supported and you will be supported. And so sometimes we just forget that we can even ask.
Yeah, I love that piece. That feels like a very perfect, both of Saturn and Pisces and Pluto entering Aquarius, Jupiter and Chiron. Like these are, these are entities, these are beings that want to support us. And so I love that you brought that in, because it can be that simple sometimes of just asking and being so dumbfounded when you receive. And I'm like, oh, it can be like that. You know? Does the world know about this? You know?
I love it. So perfect. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful place to end. And we will do these conversations again, because I just love talking to you astrology, and there's just so much goodness that comes. But yeah, that's some of the highlights of March. So I love it. And we'll be chatting soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. This was so fun, and I really can't wait to make this a regular thing so we can bring people into these energies.
Yeah, same. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.